Hello and welcome back to the internet. You know, for once I am perfectly happy to just be lazy in my chair right now. So I went for a pretty long hike today, and I don't know if you can really tell by the camera, but I got a little bit of sun. Now I know you're probably all saying, why didn't you wear sunscreen? Well, believe it or not, I don't actually burn that much. Like usually I'll burn maybe once or twice at the start of the summer, and then it gets tan, and then I'm pretty resistant to it for the rest of the summer. But I was not expecting to be out in the direct sun for 4 hours today, so yeah, I've got to deal with this. But while I'm physically incapable of even walking properly right now, I'm still perfectly fine to be reading stories, so let's just do that. So I thought I'd start off with this short story from TalesFromThePizzaGuy called Awkward Moments. So last night I delivered to some lady. When she opened the door, I was the typical, how are you, etc. Then she was like, do you need my driver's license number? After I asked her to sign. I thought this was a joke because people usually say something of the lines, dang, you really need an arm and a leg for that pizza, huh? When they have to sign. I don't get it, but it happens. So I said, yeah, we also need your social security number, in a joking tone. Then she's like, oh, okay, where do I write it? I was super confused until I realized she actually thought she needed to give her driver's license number to receive the pizza, and was willing to give her social security number. I felt really bad, but she tipped a lot and was nice about it. Man, this is why old people are so susceptible to scams. Alright, now we've got, you want quiet in the quiet coach? Just let me deal with it. So I had taken over from another guard about halfway along the journey of the train. I was walking through, checking tickets. For the most part, this was simple. Although there were, as always, a few people adamant that they did not have to show me their tickets, as they had already been checked. Seeing as I'm a 6'3" white man with a beard and short hair, and the guard I took over from was about 18 inches shorter than me, and a black woman with dreadlocks, I was somewhat annoyed that people couldn't tell us apart. Still, I was walking through the train, and nothing much was going on. I got to the front coach and was helping a lovely little old lady work out what time her onward connection was going to be in a few stops' time. I was aware of a late middle-aged man trying to get my attention, but as I was clearly helping someone else, I just said, I'm sorry sir, I'll be with you in a moment. I could sense him getting annoyed behind me, but what else could I do? Eventually I was able to turn around and deal with the gentleman, who by this time had the completion of a beetroot. Is there anything I can do to help you, sir? I asked. There most certainly is, he replied. This is supposed to be a quiet coach, but there's all the noise. I paused for a moment, waiting to hear all the noise that he's so worried about, but there was nothing. The coach was silent. I can't hear anything, I'm afraid, I said. Could you be more specific? There was a child, he said, getting redder and redder. You can't allow children in the quiet coach. I paused again, listening out for this child, but again, silence. I'm very sorry, sir, but I can't hear anything. Well, you must be deaf then. This child is making a heck of a noise. Well, it seems to me that the most noise in the coach is coming from you, sir. Well, you need to do something, he said. This is a quiet coach. It should be quiet. I demand that you do something, that you deal with the situation. Very well, I said. I shall see what I can do. I walked down the rest of the coach, checking tickets, keeping an eye out for this horrendously due child. Well, I found her, a little girl, about 4 or 5 years old, traveling with her father. Now, she wasn't being silent, but she was being very quiet, despite also being excited to be on a train with her dad. I asked them where they were going, and she told me that she was off to spend the day with her cousin. She is very excited, said her father. She's never been on a train before. Well, I'm terribly sorry, sir, I said, but there have been complaints about the noise. Yes, said the father. That bloke down the other end has been shouting about how much noise we've been making. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I don't think it's fair that you should be subject to that sort of noise. This is, after all, a quiet coach. So if you'd like, I'll offer you a complimentary upgrade to first class. This was very exciting to the little girl, and the father looked pleased that he would no longer have to put up with the moaning from Mr. Beetroot. As I was walking along to show them their new seats, I turned to Mr. Beetroot and said, As promised, sir, I have taken care of the situation. I hope that now that they're in first class, you'll no longer have any excuse to keep shouting at a poor defenseless child. This got a round of applause from some of the other passengers in the coach, which obviously was not acceptable. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, while I appreciate your kind words, may I remind you that this is the quiet coach, so please, keep the noise down. I looked over at Mr. Beetroot, watching as he tried to slide further and further into the corner of the coach, while his wife looked ready to kill him. Well, I mean, I suppose that's a decent enough ending. I almost thought he was just gonna kick off the guy that was yelling. Karen thinks I worked there, and soon got a reality check. So a couple weeks back, I had an argument with my boyfriend and decided to go for a walk. I ended up at a nearby Tessa Cohen. The employees there wear blue, just for some context, and I was wearing a Deadpool shirt and jeans. I was at the games aisle when I heard clicking behind me. This annoyed me, partly because I was still annoyed about my previous argument, but also because of how rude she was. I ignored it, and soon enough I had a hand clench on my arm and jerk me around. There she was. Karen, devourer of joy. I've been trying to talk to you for 5 minutes. Are you going to help me, or am I going to have to get a manager? I just stared blankly at her. Honestly, if you can't find a member of a normal staff, I doubt you can find a manager. She scoffed at me. I have found one, you idiot. You. Now help me, or you're getting... I don't work here. Yes, you do. You're here all the time. I laughed and said to her, in the most condescending voice possible, well, maybe because this is the closest store to my house, and because I like shopping here. If you actually used your brain, you would realize that, wouldn't you, Karen? I turned around and she began screeching. That's it. You are coming with me right now. She grabbed my wrist and yanked. Her nails dug in and caused me to bleed. I was in a bad mood, and the pain caused me to flip. I punched her in the gut with the hand she had grabbed, causing her to let go. I want this piece of crap fired. She just assaulted me for no reason. The staff member asked why I did that, and I explained the story, showing the marks on my arm. He told the woman to leave or he would call security. She screeched about managers and left. The employee told me that when I was done, to find him, and they would let me out through the back door to avoid her. I regret assaulting her, but she honestly deserved it. I love how this story just has the line, she screeched about managers and left. Story of the Karen. Man, I don't know why there have been so many I Don't Work Here Lady stories popping up lately. I mean, I don't think I've ever been mistaken for an employee somewhere, so I don't understand how it's this common. Superior wants us to be honest, but cannot cope with our honesty. So as a background, this is a story from a friend of mine that has to endure a 9 months training in some government facilities. The director of the training was a government officer and is responsible for my friend's batch to succeed in his training. The whole batch is around 60 people. The participants were people from different backgrounds, from ultra-rich to less advantaged people, but are all smart and well-educated. The said boss/director likes to talk a lot, quite rude, told cringy jokes, trying to be friendly and all. He was in his 50s, and all participants are around 21 to 25. And he often insults people, sometimes seriously, but more often in a joking way. Everybody were tired of him, but nobody would dare say anything. They just try to cope since it's only for 9 months. After an interesting 9 months, and after having a long exam, all participants pass the training. They celebrate by having an excursion to some camping grounds, where they enjoy the nature and games, etc. And at night they have a huge bonfire where everyone sat circling the fire. Everything was fine until the director stood up and tells everybody that, since it's the end of the program, he wants to hear a critique towards him, about his management, his manners, about everything. He even emphasized that, don't worry, this will not affect your further career. I can take critics. Just be honest and spit it out. Everybody froze in silence. Nobody says a word. Some mumbles such as, nothing to be complained. But the director insists on hearing any critics. So he starts naming some person to say their word, but every person refused. 1 or 2 criticized mild things, but more of a praise to the director. Until the director called a girl. Let's say her name was Mary. Mary was not so good in a local language since she was born and raised abroad. It's not a trouble for her following the training since it was conducted in a foreign language anyway. But this night, everyone talks in a local language. So Mary, being somebody raised abroad, and asked to say honesty about the program and director, just didn't beat by the bush and just pour out everything that she feels. About the rude behavior, bad jokes, and his mismanagement. And being poor in local language has caused the expressions she said to be far worse. Such as, if the director was an authoritarian leader, etc. So Mary, at that time, didn't have any clue about social cue of locals, so she just said whatever she feels. Which is true, as that is what everybody feels. But it's rude for us, so nobody dares to say that. The director, shocked at what he hears, stood up, silent, and can't take the critics by saying, you are all ungrateful to me, that I've been busting my butt for you guys, all for your own goodness. He didn't take the critics nicely, walked out of the bonfire event. Ever since that night, the director never ever talked again to Mary, and he's also never talked to the whole batch of training participants, and always talked about that night where he was criticized. Well, if you cannot take critics, don't ever insist on having people criticize yourself, especially from a person known to be frank. Well, I mean, if you can't take criticism, then don't be a YouTuber. I mean, people are relentless, they will tell you everything wrong about your channel. I just don't get how this guy was so self-unaware about how much he was, offending everybody, and that he was surprised that everyone was upset for exactly what he'd been doing. And now, entitled kid almost kills my sister, and entitled mom doesn't care. So it all started a few months back on a Saturday, and I took my 2 sisters to the park. One was 11 and the other was 7. I was watching them go down the slide and stuff when an entitled kid came to the playground. My little sister said hi, since her and him used to be friends. He says, hello, little sister. I saw that this kid was carrying a metal pipe that had bits of concrete on it. I had no clue how a 7-year-old could get something like that, but whatever. Kids are kids. They find weird stuff all the time. So my 2 sisters and the kid were playing a game, and my little sister went down the slide. Now I was keeping a close eye on the 3 of them, but I didn't see the entitled kid because he was behind the slide. He says, "Watch out, little sister." This kid then thinks it would be a great idea to chuck the pipe at my sister. The pipe in question hits her right below the shoulder, and of course she broke out in tears. I say, "What the heck is wrong with you, kid? Why would you do that?" He says, "We're just playing." I say, "No, no, no, no. Give me that right now." I then snatch the pipe off the ground before he could get it, and he starts crying. The kid says, "Mom, he took my thing." All of a sudden, an entitled mom stomps over. She says, "Why did you take my son's toy? Give it back to him right now." I say, "No, he threw it at my sister. He could have killed her." Then the entitled mom says the worst thing. "Oh please, it probably didn't even hurt her. She's just faking to get my son in trouble." At this point, I was ready to punch this lady, but then a helpful lady came over. She says, "Your child threw it at that little girl and you're defending him?" And then to the kid, "You don't throw things at people. You could have really hurt her." And then to me, "Here, hon, I'll take that pipe." She takes the pipe, goes to her car, and drives off. I'm still surprised she kept her cool and didn't get angry. Afterwards, my little sister calmed down, and me and the 2 of them walked home to tell my parents about it. Needless to say, my sister's not friends with him anymore. Man, what kind of ghetto neighborhood is this that a friggin' metal pipe and with concrete on it is considered a toy for your children? Maybe in an alternate universe you could have grabbed the pipe and chucked it at the mom, just so she could see how much it really hurts. But now let's go with, I have an entitled mother. So me and my mom have never gotten along, as she walked out on me and my sister 10 years ago and has recently tried inserting herself back into our lives. In all honesty, I absolutely hate her. She was manipulative and abusive to me, my sister, and my dad. She was also a violent alcoholic, so she has been one of the reasons I became a police officer. I recently went out with my girlfriend, sister, and dad. We drove into central London, my dad driving my car as my arm is still a bit sore. We went to the Shard Tower and went up to the observation deck. We looked at the amazing view for a few minutes. I call my girlfriend over and I kneel down, pull a ring out of my pocket and ask her to marry me. She gasps and accepts. I stand up and put the ring on her finger and pull her in for a kiss. I wince as I pulled her in with my bad arm. Everybody is clapping and congratulating us. We continue to look out over the London skyline for a few more minutes. We then leave the Shard and head to a restaurant that my dad had reserved for us. As we arrive at the restaurant, we see a face in the car park that I'd hoped I'd never see again. My mother. I say, "What the heck are you doing here?" She says, "My daughter invited me. She said you were going out and she said I could come." My sister chimes in saying, "Aren't you going to congratulate them? They just got engaged." My dad says, "Just get out of here now, please." She says, "No, how dare you not tell me that my son's got engaged? I've got every right to be here." I say, "No you don't. You abandoned us. You missed out on everything. You're a violent and manipulative woman. What makes you think we'd welcome you back in with open arms?" Dad says, "You missed out on your daughter's results day, your son's results day, every prom and party, his police graduation ceremony, and I can assure you, you'll be missing out on his wedding too." She says, "Police? You became a cop? Out of all the job choices in the world, why did you become a cop? You could get hurt. I want you to resign." I say, "You hurt me long before the job would. The reason I became a police officer is because I believe in what's right and wrong. I believe that everyone deserves a chance in life and that everyone should be safe. No one should live in fear of abuse, both verbal and physical. You ruined my childhood. I want to make sure that people don't have to go through that again. The world would be a better place if a-holes like you weren't in it. Just remember, I'm not that scared little kid anymore." So my fiancé says, "Please, let's just go." My mom sees the ring on my fiancé's finger and grabs her arm. "Wow, what a beautiful ring. Mind if I have it? I never got a wedding ring, you see. I deserve something like that." Me and my fiancé in unison, "No." My dad says, "You did have a wedding ring, a very nice one. You sold it and used the money to buy alcohol." We all pushed past her and walked into the restaurant. She tried to follow, but I blocked the doorway. I said, "Get lost, Mom. I don't want you here. Leave us alone. You made your choice 10 years ago." She says, "What? I'm sorry. Please just let me have that ring. It's what I deserve. You can just get another one." I say, "No, F off." I say, "You ungrateful piece of crap. After everything I've done for you." She slaps me hard across the face. I say, "There's the violent alcoholic I grew up with. Just go away now. I have no qualms about having my mom arrested for assaulting a police officer." I walk back into the restaurant and show my warrant card to the manager, and point out my mom and tell him not to allow her in if she tries to enter. We have a lovely meal, and it was honestly one of the best days of my life. When we left, my mom wasn't there. I hope I never see her again. My sister doesn't really remember how bad Mom was, as she was 6 when she left. I'll explain everything that our mom did when she turns 18. Me and my fiancé are getting married next summer. You know, a lot of people tend to get pretty upset when they run into people that they had a really bad time with a long time ago. I honestly sometimes just enjoy the opportunity of getting to tell them off again. I mean, they're basically just giving you another opportunity to give them all the criticism they deserve. But now we have a question, which is probably going to be a pretty quick one. What is the biggest, "it's one banana, what can it cost, $10?" moment you've witnessed in real life? Now, if that question doesn't make a lot of sense to you, it's basically just rich people who are just so out of touch with reality on how much things cost. So there was an obscenely rich kid that I went to high school with. At lunch one day, he thought his friend's peanut butter and jelly sandwich looked good, so we offered him $20 for it. For the rest of the school year, the friend brought 2 sandwiches to lunch every day, and gave the rich kid one for $20. I mean, if you calculate the price of the bread plus the peanut butter and the jelly, it's probably only a few cents. I don't even think Disneyland could get away with charging $20 for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. A customer called me about a mistake on their bill. They thought I forgot to add another zero. I'm a landscaper, mostly softscape and property maintenance. That's when you just come back and say, "Oh yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I'll give you a 10% discount." I got a new job slightly above minimum wage, and my girlfriend's dad got excited for me and told me I could afford a new Tesla now. Spoiler, I cannot. Yeah, honestly, it's been a pretty gradual change as I've gone from making like $8 an hour to like, I don't know, 12 or 13. Because I'm just like, well, now I don't feel like I'm going broke just by like buying toilet paper at least. I worked for one family as the general family personal assistant for a long time. These people are wealthy. Like, drop $1 million in cash on an oceanfront condo wealthy. The husband gave me $150 cash to go to the grocery store to buy a 12-pack of water and 6 $1 yogurts. I don't think he's ever stepped foot in a grocery store before. Well, maybe he's just leaving a very generous tip. I mean, the time that it takes you to go to the grocery store and pick up that stuff, a lot of people like this make way more than $150 in the time it takes you to do that. So it's honestly not even a loss for them to send somebody else to do that for them. Oh, yeah, I guess that's all the ones that I pulled. I forgot to get any more. Well, I think it's time for me to relax now. Just out of curiosity, is anybody going to be playing World of Warcraft Classic when it comes out tomorrow? I played it a ton back in the day, and I've been really looking for a new game to play, so I'll definitely be getting into it. And after this 9-mile hike, I feel like I deserve some downtime. But anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.